Emma's voice cut through the music like a blade. Get out. You're not welcome here. For a second, I honestly thought she was talking to someone else. The room was full flowers, champagne towers, 100 guests, and I was the father of the groom, the man whose name was on every contract, the man who paid for the chair covers nobody notices until they're gone. Then she stepped closer, eyes bright with something ugly, and pointed right at me. Leave. Now. I looked at my son Ethan, waiting for him to laugh, to correct her, to do anything. He stared at the floor like it had answers. My hand tightened around the envelope in my jacket pocket. Inside was a final payment check I hadn't handed over yet, $10,000 to close out the vendor balances. A small fortune disguised as a gift. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just nodded once, the way men do when they realize the world has mistaken their silence for weakness. And as I walked out into the night air, I made a decision so clean, it felt like calm. If I wasn't welcome at their wedding, then my money wasn't either. I learned the hard way that humiliation hits differently when it comes from someone you funded. I sat in my truck in the venue's gravel lot, hands on the steering wheel, watching warm light spill through the windows like nothing had happened. Inside, people were laughing again carefully, politely, like my exit was just a minor change in the schedule. My phone buzzed on the console. Ethan. Dad, don't make a scene. Not, are you okay? Not, what did she do? Just, instructions. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. A familiar silence settled in my chest. Some of you know that weight, the feeling of being turned into a tool and then blamed for being sharp. In my jacket pocket, the envelope felt heavier than paper should. The final payment check. The last piece of their perfect day that still depended on me. I opened my email and found the thread with the planner, Kara James, subject line, final confirmations plus balances. My thumb hovered. Then I called. Kara, I said when she answered, still chipper, I need you to cancel everything. There was a pause. I'm sorry, cancel what exactly? All of it. Venue, catering, florals, band, photo, every payment that hasn't cleared. Mr. Hart, that's tomorrow. I know. But Ethan and Emma, they made it clear I'm not welcome, so the funding isn't welcome either. Kara's voice dropped into professional caution. Your name is on the contracts. Legally, you can. I'm not asking what I can do, I said. I'm telling you what I'm doing. And when I hung up, the night didn't feel cold anymore. It felt honest. Open loop. Would Ethan finally call me a father? Or just a wallet? The first vendor I canceled sounded like he'd heard this story before. I drove home without turning on the radio. Just the hum of tires and the replay of Emma's words like a broken record. You're not welcome here. At my kitchen table, I opened the wedding binder I'd built over months. Tabs, folders, invoices. A man's version of love, I guess. Quiet, practical, expensive. I called the venue first. Ridgeview Estates, this is Monica. This is Daniel Hart, contract holder for the Hart-Lawson wedding. I'm canceling effective immediately. Silence stretched. Sir, there is a cancellation fee. I'm aware. And may I ask why? I looked at my reflection in the dark window. Tired eyes. Jaw clenched too long. Because I'm not welcome at the event I paid for. Another pause, softer now. Understood. We'll process termination. Click. Florist, next. Then caterer. Then the band. Every call was the same pattern. Surprise. Caution. Then the cold reality of my signature on their paperwork. With every cancellation, I felt my spine straighten. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't posting online. I wasn't threatening anyone. I was simply withdrawing consent. I checked my phone again. More messages. Emma, you petty old man. Emma, you've always hated me. Emma, you're going to regret this. I took screenshots, saved them to a folder labeled Kara plus attorney. Some of you know that familiar silence the moment you stop explaining yourself and start documenting. I finally opened the envelope and looked at the check. $10,000. My handwriting. My generosity. Then I tore it clean in half and dropped it in the trash. Open loop. If Emma could throw me out so easily, what else had she been taking? My son showed up at my door like I'd stolen something that belonged to him. The pounding started at 8:42 a.m., hard enough to rattle the picture frames. Dad, open up. I didn't rush. I finished pouring coffee, slow and steady, Like calm was a decision I was allowed to make. When I opened the door, Ethan pushed inside without waiting. His face was flushed, tie loosened. That same boyish anger he used to have at 16, only now it came with entitlement. "What the hell did you do?" he demanded. "The venue says we're off the schedule. The caterer won't answer. Kara's freaking out." I took a sip. "Lower your voice. You can't just cancel our wedding." "Our?" I repeated softly. He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "I paid for the deposits," I said. "I signed the contracts. They're in my name." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Emma was upset. It was stressful. "You're making it worse." I felt something shift behind my ribs, grief turning into clarity. "Your fiancé told me to leave. In front of everyone. And you stared at the floor. I didn't want to escalate it. You let her escalate me right out of the room." He swallowed. Then his voice turned sharp, cruel in that way only family can manage. "This is why Mom left. You always need control." There it was, the old wound, thrown like a rock. I set my mug down carefully so it wouldn't shake. "Control?" I said. "Ethan, I funded your entire fantasy, and I was disposable the second Emma decided I was inconvenient." His eyes flickered. "Just wants guilt, maybe." Then he doubled down. "So what, you're punishing us?" I opened the front door and stepped aside. "I'm done financing disrespect," I said. "You should go." Open loop. If Ethan believed Emma's version, what story was she telling everyone else? The calls started immediately. Family always prefers peace when they're not the one paying the price. By noon, my phone rang with relatives I barely spoke to. First was my sister, Janine. She didn't even say hello properly. "Danny, Ethan is devastated. Fix it. Fix it." Like I was a mechanic and their marriage was a broken engine I owed them repairs for. "I didn't break it," I said quietly. He said Emma overreacted. "And he underreacted," I replied. Janine sighed. "The way people do when they want you to apologize, so they can stop feeling uncomfortable. Be the bigger person. You don't want to ruin his big day." I stared at the wedding binder on my table, open to a page titled Final Balances, Numbers. Dates, my name. "Bigger person," I said. "That's code for keep paying and keep quiet." She didn't answer, because she knew. Then my ex-wife called Melissa, voice tight and rehearsed. "Danny, whatever happened, canceling everything is extreme. Where were you last night?" I asked. "When Emma told me to leave." "Don't do this." I almost laughed. That familiar silence again, people demanding restraint from the one who finally sets a boundary. After I hung up, I sat alone in the kitchen and realized something I'd spent years avoiding. They didn't love my presence. They loved my support. And support, apparently, meant money. I opened my laptop and searched local attorneys, someone sharp, discreet, unbothered. When I clicked schedule consultation, my phone buzzed again. "Emma, we'll forgive you if you pay again." I stared at that line for a long time. Forgive me. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a wedding issue. It was a respect issue. Open loop. If they felt comfortable forgiving me, what else did they feel entitled to? My attorney didn't raise her voice once, and somehow that scared me more than anger would have. Marisol Vega had an office that smelled like paper and citrus cleaner. No softness, no sentimentality, just competence. She read through my binder, flipping pages like she'd seen every variation of human greed. "Your name is on everything," she said, tapping a contract with her pen. "You're the client. You can cancel." "What if they sue?" I asked. Marisol leaned back. "On what grounds? Hurt feelings?" She said it so dryly I almost smiled. I handed her my phone, screenshots of Emma's texts, Ethan's messages, the smear posts starting to appear. Marisol's eyes narrowed. "Defamation, harassment, and if there's unauthorized spending, financial fraud." "Unauthorized spending?" She looked at me. "Mr. Hart, people who feel entitled to your money rarely stop at asking." That sentence landed like a stone. Some of you know that feeling, the one where your stomach sinks because a piece of you already knows what you're about to find. Marisol slid a form across the desk. "First, we send a notice to vendors confirming cancellation authority. Second, we prepare a cease and desist if they keep posting lies." "And Ethan?" Her voice softened by half a degree. "You can love your son and still protect yourself." When I left her office, the air felt sharper, cleaner, like I'd stepped out of fog. In the parking lot, I opened my banking app and scanned recent charges, just to be sure. My thumb stopped. A charge I didn't recognize. Then another. Then another. My pulse kicked up, because weddings are expensive, but these weren't wedding charges. These were luxuries. Open loop. What exactly had Emma been buying, with my name attached to it? I didn't discover the betrayal in a dramatic confrontation. I found it in an email receipt. At home, I sat at my desk and searched my inbox for the word confirmation. The first result made my throat go dry. Subject: final payment, confirmation, Maldives overwater villa package. I clicked. 14 nights. Private butler. Yacht excursion. Unlimited champagne. Total $24,860. Charged to my card ending in 3,921. My card. My hands didn't shake at first. They went numb. Then another email. A designer luggage set. Then a private chef deposit. Then spa reservations. I opened my statements and saw the pattern like a trail of footprints. This wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, breathing slow. Some of you know that wait the moment you realize kindness has been used as a map to your pockets. My phone lit up again. Ethan, we can talk calmly. Emma didn't mean it. Emma, you're ruining our lives. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the Maldives email to Marisol with one line. I didn't authorize this. Then I called my credit card company and disputed every charge I could. The representative asked, "Do you know who made these purchases?" I swallowed. Yes. Saying it out loud felt like losing something I didn't know. I still had hope. That night, Ethan left a voicemail. "Dad, I don't even know why I'm calling. You've never been supportive unless you're controlling. Emma was right about you." He exhaled sharply. "No wonder Mom couldn't stand you." I listened once, then deleted it. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Open loop. If they could steal from me and still blame me, what would they do next to protect their image? The smear campaign didn't hurt because strangers believed it. It hurt because family helped spread it. By morning, Emma's video was everywhere. Her face was perfectly lit, eyes red just enough to look sincere. She held Ethan's hand like a prop. Caption: "My future father-in-law destroyed our wedding out of spite." Comments stacked up fast. "Cut him off. Toxic men always need control. Poor Ethan." I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I saved screenshots and sent them to Marisol. Then Janine texted, "People are talking. Can't you just apologize and pay again?" That's the thing about public lies. They're designed to pressure you into silence by making defense look like drama. At noon, Marisol called. "We're sending a cease and desist today," she said, "and we're freezing any joint accounts tied to your name." "I have one," I admitted. "Old account Ethan used in college." "Check it," she said. I logged in. Recent withdrawals. $7,500. My chest tightened. Not because of the money, because of the timing right after I paid the venue deposit. Marisol's voice was steady. "We freeze it now. Today." I closed my eyes. That account had been my promise. I'll always be here. But promises don't mean you accept theft. "Do it," I said. That afternoon, the cease and desist went out certified mail, email, and a copy to Emma's parents. A quiet move, a legal move. No shouting, no threats, just consequences. Open loop. Would Ethan finally see what Emma was? Or would he cling to her story until it drowned him? The first crack in their story didn't come from me, it came from a vendor. A florist posted an Instagram story. "Unexpected opening this weekend, last-minute wedding slot available." No names, no drama, just business. But people connected dots fast. Then the photographer posted, "Schedule open due to cancellation, DM for details." Then someone commented under Emma's video, "Didn't Daniel pay for everything, though?" Emma's friends jumped on it. "Stop spreading lies. You don't know the full story." But the seed was planted. Later that night, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Hart?" a man asked. "This is Gary Lawson, Emma's father." His voice was tight, like he was swallowing pride with every word. "We need to resolve this." I didn't answer right away. I let the silence do the work. Finally, he exhaled. "If this is about money, we can work something out. Reinstate the payments. The guests, our reputation—" "There it is," I said calmly. "What? The only reason you called?" His voice sharpened. "Do you understand what this will do to Emma?" I looked around my quiet kitchen, my single mug, my untouched dinner plate. "Do you understand what Emma did to me?" I asked. He started to speak. I ended the call. Some of you know that familiar silence when you stop trying to be understood by people who only hear numbers. That weekend, the day that was supposed to be their day, I booked myself a room at a coastal hotel 2 states away. Not out of revenge, out of peace. Open loop. When the truth finally surfaced, would Ethan call me? Or would he hide? I didn't crash their wedding day, I disappeared from it. Saturday morning, sunlight poured across my hotel balcony. The ocean looked indifferent in the best way. I drank black coffee and watched waves fold into themselves like they had no interest in human drama. At 1:58 p.m., my phone buzzed with a guest's text. "Can't wait to see you at 2." I didn't correct them. Somewhere, Emma was probably in a white dress with nowhere to go. Somewhere, Ethan was realizing deposits don't refund themselves. I opened Instagram and posted one photo. Ocean, sky. My shoes kicked off. Caption: "Peace is expensive. Worth it. No names. No explanation." By Monday, the whispers turned into a roar. Screenshots of the Maldives confirmations started circulating in a local wedding group, blurred but recognizable. Comments were brutal. "So they stole from him? Imagine biting the hand that pays. That's not a wedding, that's a scam." Emma went silent online. Ethan's profile picture disappeared. Janine called again, voice different, now smaller. "Danny, I didn't know." "I know," I said, and I meant it, because I'd finally learned something I should have learned years ago. People don't ask for the full story when the lie feels convenient. That night, a text arrived from Ethan. "Dad, can we talk? We made mistakes." I stared at it for a long time. Some of you know that weight, the choice between closure and peace. I didn't reply. I turned my phone off. And for the first time in decades, my silence wasn't submission. It was freedom. Open loop. Would Ethan ever grow into the kind of man who could apologize without bargaining? The last thing I expected was to feel nothing, and that's how I knew I'd finally healed. 2 weeks passed. Marisol kept me updated. Disputes filed, fraud claims documented, cease and desist delivered. Emma's parents stopped calling. Ethan tried twice more, one voicemail, one email. The email subject line read, "Let's move forward." Inside, he wrote, "We're willing to forgive you if you can be respectful." I laughed once, quietly, in my empty kitchen. Forgive me. The audacity was almost impressive. I didn't answer. Instead, I donated the remaining wedding budget, what would have been my gift, to a local scholarship fund for trade students. Kids who worked hard, didn't demand, didn't perform grief online. When the donation receipt came, I folded it and tucked it into the old wedding binder. A new tab. Better uses. That evening, I took a walk through my neighborhood. Sprinklers clicked. Dogs barked. Ordinary life moving forward. And I realized something that might sound cold, but it's not. I didn't miss the wedding. I missed the son I thought I had. Some of you know that familiar silence, the grief of losing someone who's still alive. At home, my phone turned back on and lit up with one final message from Ethan. "I don't know how to come back from this." He stared at it. Then I typed the only honest thing I could manage. "Start with the truth. No excuses." I hit send. I didn't know if he'd answer. I didn't know if he'd change. But my peace didn't depend on it anymore. And that was the cleanest ending I could live with. The first time my son doubted her, he didn't accuse, he hesitated. Ethan called just after 10 p.m., his voice lower than usual. "Dad, I need you to tell me the truth." "I always have," I said. He exhaled. "Emma says you offered to pay for the honeymoon, that the Maldives was your idea." I leaned against the kitchen counter, staring at the faint scratch marks in the wood from years of ordinary life. "Did I ever mention the Maldives to you?" "No." "Did I ever discuss a $25,000 upgrade?" Silence. Some of you recognize that pause the moment belief starts slipping, but pride won't let it fall. "She showed me screenshots," he said finally. "You saying you'd take care of everything." "From my number?" "No." I let that sit. "I didn't know about the honeymoon until I saw the charge alert," I said calmly. I disputed it immediately. "There's a fraud investigation open." His breathing shifted. Less certain now. "She said you're trying to scare us with lawyers." "I hired a lawyer to protect myself," I replied. "That's different." Another silence. "Did she really tell you to leave?" he asked quietly. "Yes." "And I didn't." He trailed off. "You didn't." The truth landed without shouting. He swallowed hard. "I don't know what to believe." "Start with facts," I said, "not fear." For the first time, he didn't defend her. And that crack in certainty? It was the first honest thing we'd had in days. The moment doubt enters a relationship, everything sounds different. The next afternoon, Ethan texted me a single line. She says if I question her, it means I don't love her. I read it twice before replying. That wasn't fear talking. That was leverage. I typed slowly. Love doesn't require you to ignore facts. He didn't answer right away. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. Her dad is threatening to sue you for emotional distress. I almost smiled at the predictability of it. When money fails, intimidation usually follows. I forwarded the message to Marisol without commentary. Within minutes, she replied, "They have no standing. Let them try." That steadiness helped more than she knew. Some of you recognize that shift the second you stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically. By evening, another crack appeared. Ethan called, voice tight. The credit card company contacted Emma. They're asking for authorization proof. There it was. Paperwork. Timestamps. IP addresses. Things feelings can't override. And? I asked. He hesitated. She's saying it must be a mistake. I didn't press. Silence can do more than interrogation ever could. Finally, he said, almost to himself, if she didn't do anything wrong, why is she panicking? That question hung in the air between us. I didn't answer it for him. He needed to sit with it, because the truth wasn't coming from me anymore. It was coming from consequences. The collapse didn't come with shouting, it came with a single admission. Ethan showed up unannounced again, but this time he didn't look angry. He looked pale, like someone who hadn't slept. She can't prove it, he said the second I opened the door. I didn't pretend to misunderstand. The card? He nodded. The bank asked for written authorization. She doesn't have it. We stood there in the entryway, the late afternoon sun cutting across the hardwood floor in long, quiet lines. She said maybe you forgot, he added weakly. I don't forget $25,000, I replied. He gave a short, humorless breath that almost passed for a laugh. Almost. Some of you know that moment the instant denial turns into defense, and defense turns into realization. They're escalating it, he continued. Her dad's talking about lawyers, saying you're trying to trap her. I didn't trap anyone, I said evenly. I stopped paying. That landed. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. She told me if I don't stand by her publicly, it proves you've always controlled me. There it was again, isolation dressed up as loyalty. And what do you think? I asked. He stopped moving. For the first time, he didn't answer immediately. I think, his voice thinned, I think I ignored a lot of red flags. The word hung in the room like a cracked bell. Red flags. Not misunderstandings, not stress. Patterns. She booked the honeymoon before the rehearsal, he said quietly. 3 weeks before. That detail hit differently. So this wasn't reaction, I said. It was expectation. He nodded once. Silence settled between us again, but it wasn't heavy this time. It was clarifying. I defended her, he admitted. Against you. Against everyone. I know. And she still used your card. There was no defense left in that sentence. Just fact. Some of you recognize that weight the moment you realize you weren't protecting love. You were protecting an illusion. He sank into the chair at the kitchen table, elbows on knees. I don't know how to fix this. You don't fix it, I said gently. You face it. He looked up at me then, not as a son looking for rescue, but as a man realizing rescue isn't coming. Are you pressing charges? He asked. I'm letting the investigation run its course. And if it comes back as fraud, then she answers for it. He swallowed hard. And me? I met his eyes. That depends, I said, on whether you keep pretending you didn't know. The clock ticked softly behind us. For the first time since the rehearsal, Ethan didn't defend her. He didn't defend himself either. He just sat there finally understanding that adulthood doesn't protect you from consequences. It introduces you to them. The moment the investigation became real, Emma stopped sounding confident. It happened on a Thursday morning when Ethan called, voice tight and stripped of its usual defensiveness. The bank classified it as unauthorized pending final review, he said, like he was reading from something official. I could hear movement in the background, drawers opening, a door shutting too hard. They froze her access to the merchant account tied to the booking. I didn't react outwardly, but inside something settled. Not satisfaction, just confirmation. Facts don't yell. They don't cry on social media. They document. What is she saying now? I asked. Ethan hesitated. That you set her up. That you planned this. The accusation didn't sting anymore. It sounded desperate. Some of you recognize that shift when the story changes because the original lie can't survive paperwork. Did I have access to her email? I asked calmly. No. Did I book the trip? No. Silence pressed in on his side of the line. Then he said something different. She deleted the screenshots. That was new. Not defended, not explained, just stated. Why? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. Because they weren't real. There it was. Not shouted, not dramatic, just truth surfacing like something that had been underwater too long. I didn't celebrate. I didn't say I told you so. I simply asked, what are you going to do now? Because at this point, it wasn't about proving I was right. It was about whether my son was strong enough to admit he'd been wrong. The breakup didn't happen in a dramatic explosion. It happened in a sentence, spoken too quietly to take back. Ethan came over that night without calling first, and I could tell before he spoke that something had shifted. His jaw wasn't set in defense anymore. It was tight with resolve. I asked her one more time, he said, standing in my living room like a man waiting for a verdict. I asked her to swear it wasn't fake. I didn't interrupt. He looked past me at the hallway, as if expecting someone to contradict him. She said if I loved her, I'd drop it. That familiar line again, love measured by silence. Some of you know that weight, when loyalty is used as a leash. And? I asked. His throat moved as he swallowed. And I told her love doesn't require lying. The words sounded foreign to him, like he'd just learned them. He sat down slowly. She packed a bag, said I'd regret choosing you over her. I shook my head. This was never about choosing me. He nodded faintly. I know that now. The apartment lease was in both their names. Deposits were gone. Wedding guests were gossiping. Consequences had arrived in full. But for the first time, Ethan wasn't blaming anyone else. He was sitting in it. I should have defended you, he said quietly. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't performative. It was simply true. And truth, finally, had more weight than pride. Regret sounds different when it's no longer trying to defend itself. Ethan stayed longer than usual that night, sitting across from me at the kitchen table like he used to after high school games, quiet, processing. She told her parents I manipulated her, he said, staring at his hands. Told them I turned you against her. I didn't react. I'd heard versions of that already. But when I asked her why the screenshots were fake, he continued, she said it shouldn't matter, that we were supposed to be a team. Some of you recognize that line, the idea that unity means ignoring truth. A team doesn't hide evidence, I said evenly. He nodded. I think I knew something was off even before the rehearsal, he admitted. She kept pushing for upgrades, bigger venue, better package, saying you wouldn't mind. That detail hung there, heavy but clarifying. This hadn't been impulse, it had been assumption. And I let it happen, he added quietly. That mattered more than anything else. Ownership changes the tone of everything. What happens now? He asked. The investigation finishes, I replied. The charges resolve, and you rebuild what you damaged. He met my eyes, steady this time. With you, I didn't answer right away, because rebuilding trust isn't a switch, it's work, and work takes time. Rebuilding trust doesn't begin with forgiveness, it begins with distance. A week passed before Ethan came by again, and this time he didn't look lost. He looked humbled. The bank finalized it, he said, standing in my doorway. They ruled it unauthorized. The Maldives charge is reversed. I nodded once. Not because I was relieved I already knew the outcome, but because consequences had finally caught up to narrative. Her parents are furious, he added. They're saying I ruined her reputation. Some of you know that shift the moment accountability gets renamed as betrayal. Did you ruin it? I asked. He shook his head slowly. No, she did. That mattered. Not because it vindicated me, but because he said it without anger. Just clarity. He stepped inside, looking around the house like he was seeing it differently. I don't expect you to just move on, he said carefully. I know I broke something. I let that sit between us. Trust isn't rebuilt in speeches. It's rebuilt in patterns. You did, I answered. He didn't argue. Instead, he pulled an envelope from his jacket cache and a cashier's check. For the joint account, he said. All of it. I didn't count it. The amount wasn't the point. Effort was. And for the first time since that rehearsal night, I saw not a boy defending comfort, but a man accepting cost. The apology didn't come with tears, it came with consistency. Over the next few weeks, Ethan didn't ask for anything. He didn't defend Emma online. He didn't try to rewrite what happened. Instead, he showed up on Sundays with groceries, fixed the loose hinge on my back gate without being asked, and transferred money into my account until every disputed dollar was accounted for. Some of you recognize that shift the difference between regret spoken and regret lived. One evening, while we were sitting on the porch watching the sky fade into that deep summer blue, he cleared his throat. I kept thinking if I just kept the peace, everything would work out, he admitted. I nodded slowly. Peace built on silence isn't peace, I said. It's delay. He absorbed that without argument. I let her disrespect you, he added quietly, and I told myself it was temporary. That word lingered, temporary. Disrespect rarely is. Why didn't you tell me how much it hurt? He asked. I looked out at the streetlights flickering on. Because I didn't want to compete with your happiness, I answered honestly. He shook his head, almost ashamed. It wasn't happiness. No drama. No raised voices. Just truth landing where it should have from the start. And for the first time, the silence between us didn't feel like distance. It felt like space to rebuild. Closure didn't arrive the day the charges reversed. It arrived the day I stopped replaying the rehearsal in my head. It happened quietly on a Wednesday afternoon while I was reorganizing the old wedding binder. I flipped past invoices, cancellation confirmations, dispute letters, and finally paused at the tab I'd labeled Better Uses. The scholarship receipt was still there, crisp and uncomplicated. Ethan had been coming by regularly now, not to apologize again, not to reopen the wound, but to participate. He asked questions about my work. He listened, really listened. Some of you know that difference the moment someone stops defending their image and starts repairing their character. That evening he brought dinner. Nothing fancy. Just takeout from the diner we used to go to when he was a kid. Over coffee, he said, I keep thinking about that night. About you walking out. I didn't answer immediately. I thought staying silent made me mature, he continued. But it made me complicit. That word mattered. Not dramatic. Not theatrical. Just accurate. Growth hurts, I said. But it's cheaper than denial. He nodded, accepting it without flinching. The wedding never happened. The relationship didn't recover. But something else did. Not perfectly. Not instantly. Just steadily. And sometimes steady is stronger than spectacle. The real ending wasn't dramatic. It was deliberate. A month after the rehearsal night, Ethan asked to meet at a small Italian place halfway between us. Neutral ground, no history in the walls. He arrived early. That mattered more than he knew. Over untouched bread and quiet music, he said, I kept choosing comfort over integrity. He didn't blame Emma. He didn't defend himself. He just owned it. Then he looked at me and said, I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. No conditions, no excuses, just truth. I nodded. That was enough. We didn't hug it out. We didn't pretend nothing broke. Trust isn't rebuilt in speeches, it's rebuilt in patterns. And he'd been showing up, consistently, without asking for anything in return. Outside under the streetlights, he said, I don't want to be that man again. I believed him. Silence isn't weakness. Boundaries aren't cruelty.